The crystalline chandeliers of the lunar palace cast prismatic shadows across the gathering hall, painting Ambassador Marcus Chen in shifting hues of violet and amber. 3 days. He'd been on this moon for only 3 days, and already the weight of interstellar diplomacy pressed against his shoulders like the moon's lighter, gravity deceptive in its gentleness. Princess Zothra moved through the crowd with the fluid grace characteristic of her people, the Luna. Her skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that betrayed nothing of her thoughts. Though Marcus had heard the whispers, the princess possessed psychic abilities that could shatter minds, could read intentions like humans read text. The nobles around her maintained respectful distances, their reverence tinted with unmistakable fear. Marcus stood near a window overlooking the terraformed gardens, nursing a glass of something the Lunari assured him was compatible with human metabolism. He was making mental notes for his report to Earth when he felt a presence beside him, sudden and silent as moonlight. Ambassador Chen. Her voice carried the musical quality of her language, even when speaking English, learned specifically for this diplomatic exchange. He turned, attempting a respectful bow that the cultural briefing had recommended. Your Highness. The princess's large opalescent eyes met his for only a moment before darting away. Nervous. That seemed impossible for someone of her station and power. Around them, conversations continued. But Marcus noticed several courtiers watching them with barely concealed interest. She moved closer. Close enough that he could see the delicate gills along her neck flutter with each breath. When she spoke again, her voice dropped to barely more than a whisper, forcing him to lean in. Come to my room, after everyone sleeps. Human? Marcus's heart stuttered. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implications he couldn't begin to parse. Before he could respond, before he could even process what she'd said, Princess Zothra glided away, her diaphanous robes trailing behind her like captured starlight. He stood frozen, the glass trembling slightly in his hand. Around him, the party continued as if nothing world-altering had just occurred. But Marcus felt the weight of several gazes upon him now, calculating, suspicious, curious. What had he just agreed to by his silence? And more importantly, what could an alien princess possibly want from Earth's junior ambassador that required such secrecy? Marcus returned to his quarters in the palace's human-compatible wing, his mind racing faster than his footsteps. The room was a study in thoughtful xenarchitecture, air composition carefully calibrated, gravity adjusted to Earth normal, furniture scaled for human proportions. Yet despite these comforts, he felt more alien than ever. He paced before the window, watching the larger planet rise above the horizon, its blue-green surface marbled with clouds. Earth was a distant point of light somewhere beyond that world, 47 light-years away. The journey here had taken weeks, even through the newly discovered slipstream. And in all that time, nothing in his diplomatic training had prepared him for a midnight summons from royalty. The practical part of his mind catalogued the dangers. This could be a setup, a way to compromise Earth's diplomatic position. The Lunari court was a labyrinth of intrigue that made Renaissance Italy look straightforward. He could be walking into a trap, a scandal, or worse. But something about the princess's demeanor nagged at him. The nervousness in her eyes, the way her bioluminescent patterns had flickered erratically, signs of distress in Lunari body language. She hadn't looked at him with desire or malice, but with something that looked remarkably like desperation. Marcus accessed his diplomatic files, reviewing everything known about Princess Zothra, third in line to the throne, powerful psychic, trained from childhood in the mental disciplines of her people, unmarried, though several political alliances had been proposed, known for her charity work among the lower castes and her advocacy for reform. No scandals, no political missteps. A model royal by all accounts, so why would such a person risk impropriety by inviting a foreign ambassador to her private chambers? The hours crawled past with agonizing slowness. Marcus tried to sleep but couldn't. He rehearsed possible scenarios, planned diplomatic responses, considered calling his superiors back on Earth, but the tight beam communication lag would take hours. And somehow, he knew this couldn't wait. At precisely 2 hours past midnight by palace time, when the corridors had fallen silent and the bioluminescent wall fixtures had dimmed to their night cycle glow, Marcus made his decision. He dressed in formal diplomatic attire, checked that his universal translator was functioning, and stepped into the corridor. The walk to the royal wing felt like kilometers. Though it was probably only a few hundred meters, his footsteps seemed impossibly loud on the polished stone floors. Twice he passed palace guards, who merely nodded at him had she arranged for his passage. Finally, he stood before her door, ornately carved with flowing Lunari script. His hand hesitated before knocking. This was it. Whatever lay beyond this door would change everything. The door slid open before Marcus could knock, revealing Princess Zothra backlit by the soft, organic glow of her chambers. She had changed from her formal gathering attire into something simpler, a flowing robe of deep blue that seemed to absorb and reflect light simultaneously. Her bioluminescent patterns pulsed with anxiety, creating ripples of light across her skin. Relief flooded her voice. I wasn't certain you would. Your Highness, Marcus began, but she raised a hand. Please, close the door. And in here, just Zothera, she gestured to a seating area where furniture had been adjusted to accommodate both their species. I apologize for the mystery, but I couldn't risk anyone overhearing. My people have stronger hearing than yours, and there are always ears in the palace walls. Marcus entered, the door sealing behind him with a soft hiss. The chamber was beautiful walls that seemed to breathe with bioluminescent life. Furniture grown rather than built, and through tall windows, a spectacular view of the planet. But what struck him most was the layer of some kind of translucent barrier that shimmered faintly across every surface. Psychic dampening fields, Zothera explained, following his gaze. The only place in the palace where I can think freely without fear of mental eavesdropping. Even my own abilities are muted here. She settled onto a seat, gesturing for him to do the same. That's why I needed you, specifically. I don't understand, Marcus said. Sitting carefully, Zothera's skills fluttered rapidly, a sign of distress he'd learned to recognize. 3 weeks ago, I began sensing something wrong in the court. Fragments of thoughts, whispers of treachery. My psychic abilities are strong, Ambassador, but they're not precise. I catch emotions, intentions, general impressions, not specific plans. What I've been sensing is murder, assassination, a conspiracy that runs deep into the heart of the royal family. Marcus felt his blood run cold. Have you told anyone? Your parents? The security forces, who? Her laugh was bitter. That's the problem. I sense the conspiracy, but I cannot identify the conspirators. It could be anyone, my siblings, my cousins, the High Council, even my own parents. In Lunari politics, trust is currency, and I'm bankrupt. Any move I make could tip off the plotters, could accelerate whatever they're planning. She leaned forward, her eyes intense despite their alien structure. But you, Marcus Chen of Earth, you're outside our political web entirely. Your mind is closed to our psychic abilities. Our technology can't read human neural patterns. That makes you simultaneously useless to the conspirators and invaluable to me. You want me to investigate, Marcus said slowly. Understanding dawning. I want you to be my eyes and ears where mine cannot reach, Zothera confirmed. You can move through the palace, ask questions, observe interactions, and no one can pluck your suspicions from your mind. You're invisible to the very tools that make this conspiracy possible. Marcus stood and walked to the window, his mind churning through implications. Below, the palace gardens glowed softly with nocturnal blooms, seeming peaceful, almost innocent. But if what Zothera said was true, poison grew in these beautiful halls. This could start an interstellar incident, he said quietly. If I'm caught investigating Lunari royalty, Earth's entire diplomatic mission could be compromised. Decades of careful relationship building destroyed. I know what I'm asking. Zothera's voice was soft but steady. But I'm asking anyway, because you're my only option. Because people will die if this conspiracy succeeds, possibly thousands, depending on their ultimate goal. Because sometimes the right thing and the safe thing are not the same. Marcus turned to face her. Why should I trust you? For all I know, you're the conspirator, trying to use me against your enemies. You shouldn't trust me, Zothera said simply. You should trust your own judgment. Watch me, watch the court. Use those human instincts your people are so proud of. I'm gambling that you'll see the truth and choose to act on it. There was something compelling about her directness, her willingness to acknowledge his doubts rather than paper over them with reassurances. Marcus had been a prosecutor before joining the diplomatic corps, and he'd learned to read people. Everything about Zothera's body language, her tone, her apparent desperation, it all rang true. What exactly have you sensed? He asked, moving back to his seat. Give me everything, every detail. Relief washed across her features, her bioluminescent patterns brightening momentarily. 4 days ago, during the new moon ceremony, I felt a surge of anticipation from someone in the crowd. Not excitement, dark, hungry, like waiting for a meal. The next day, that feeling had spread. Now it's everywhere, an undercurrent of eagerness for something terrible. She pulled out a small device, projecting a holographic map of the palace. I've felt it strongest in 3 locations, the High Council chambers, the military wing, and near my brother's quarters. Prince Talmer, second in line to the throne. You think your brother is involved? I think the conspiracy centers around him, whether he knows it or not. Zothera manipulated the hologram, highlighting movement patterns. My father is old. Marcus, his health fails. The succession should be clear. My eldest brother Venkar becomes king, but Talmar has always been ambitious, always felt passed over. If someone wanted to destabilize the throne, they'd use him, Marcus finished. Classic power play. But this is your family, your blood, which is why I can't do this alone. Her eyes met his. Will you help me? Marcus was silent for a long moment, weighing duty against conscience, safety against necessity. Finally, he nodded. Tell me where to start. The next morning, Marcus began his investigation with the one advantage: he possessed invisibility through ignorance. As Earth's ambassador, he had legitimate reasons to tour the palace, meet officials, ask questions about Lunari governance. No one would suspect ulterior motives from someone so obviously out. of his depth in their political waters, he started with the military wing, requesting a briefing on defense protocols as part of his diplomatic education. The commander, a scarred veteran named Kralzix, seemed eager to showcase Lunari military prowess. But Marcus noticed the subtle signs, private conversations that stopped when he approached, exchanges of looks between certain officers, the way some mentioned Prince Talmor with a particular emphasis. In the High Council chambers, he attended an open session, watching the dynamics between counselors. Two in particular seemed nervous, their bioluminescent patterns flickering irregularly whenever succession was mentioned. One was a trade minister with close ties to the military. The other, unexpectedly, was the king's own sister, Princess Zothera's aunt. The pieces were falling into place, but they painted a disturbing picture. That night, Marcus returned to Zothera's chambers with his findings. She listened intently, her expression growing darker as he detailed his observations. "It's worse than I thought," she said finally. "My aunt, she must be orchestrating everything, using Talmor as a puppet. She has the political connections, the military contacts, and my father's trust. When the king dies, and my spies tell me it may be soon, she's positioned to put Talmor on the throne and rule through him. But that still doesn't explain the murder plot you sensed," Marcus pointed out. "Talmor is already second in line. Why assassinate?" He stopped, understanding hitting him. "Your eldest brother. They're going to kill Venkar." Zothera's hands trembled, "and make it look like an accident, or blame it on external enemies, maybe even on Earth, to justify breaking our alliance." She looked at Marcus. "We have to stop this. Tonight, Venkar tours the old mines for an infrastructure inspection. If they're going to strike, that's when they spent the next hour planning. Two beings from different worlds, united by a simple truth that justice mattered more than politics, that some lines couldn't be crossed without someone standing in the way." Marcus contacted his security detail under the pretense of wanting to see the mines himself. Zothera used her authority to deploy loyal guards to strategic positions when the conspiracy was finally exposed. The sabotaged mining equipment, the bribed guards, the evidence trail leading back to the aunt and her military collaborators, the Lunari court erupted into chaos. But Prince Venkar lived, and the king's trust in his middle daughter, once marginal, transformed into deep respect. Weeks later, as Marcus prepared to return to Earth, Zothera found him in the gardens. "You saved my family," she said simply. "Saved our kingdom from civil war." "Why?" Marcus smiled. "Because you asked. Because sometimes fate puts you exactly where you need to be, even if it's 47 light years from home." She touched his hand in the Lunari gesture of deepest respect. "The alliance between our worlds is stronger now, not because of treaties or trade agreements, but because when it mattered, one human chose to stand with one Lunari against the darkness." As Marcus's ship lifted off the next day, he looked back at the moon, growing smaller below him. He'd come as an ambassador and left as something more: a friend, an ally, and proof that destiny sometimes whispers its invitations in the most unexpected voices.